Hey, what's going on? Jeff Ratcliffe here. It's fantasy football draft season, and at this time of year, one of the most common questions that I get asked is, when do I draft a quarterback? And of course, there's no simple answer to that question. It really depends on a number of factors. First and foremost, your league format, but also what happens on draft day will dictate when you pick a quarterback. But let's try and run through some of these scenarios, try and give you a full answer to that question for your league format. And let's start with one quarterback leagues. And really, the size of your league certainly dictates how you're going to approach your draft. So whether you're in a 10-team league, an 8-team league, a 12-team league, a 16-team league, it really depends. But the most common format out there, of course, is a 12-team league. We use that as our standard format at PFF.com. So in this league, I know that there's the tendency, especially in home leagues, to draft quarterbacks very early. You might be in one of those leagues, the crazy early quarterback leagues, where you may still see quarterbacks come off the board in the first round. Patrick Mahomes may be drafted in the first round. But the reality is there's so much value at the position that even in those types of leagues, you don't have to address the position early. There are legitimately 20 quarterbacks in this year's fantasy drafts who could be fantasy starters week in, week out. You know, you're going to see that run happen, right? It's going to happen on draft day. Quarterbacks are going to go off the board. It's so easy to succumb to a run, but on draft day, we don't want to be the ones reacting to runs. We want to be the ones starting runs or just simply staying in our own lane. And what ends up happening is all those folks in your leagues who draft quarterbacks early, well, they're not addressing other positions at that time. So value falls down the board to you first and foremost. And then secondly, they're going to stop drafting quarterbacks, right? They're not going to draft 6 quarterbacks each. So those quarterbacks are going to hang around on the board for a very long time. You can get away with waiting until the late rounds of your draft. I wouldn't even really start looking at the position most typically until at least round 8 and probably more like round 9 or 10. That being said, more like round 9 or 10, where in a home league you have some sharp players and people actually do wait at quarterback. Well, if Deshaun Watson's still on the board in the 7th round, grab Deshaun Watson, make your opponents pay for leaving value on the board. It's unlikely to happen. It's unlikely to happen. So the reality is you still can get away with waiting, and you can get quality guys like Kirk Cousins in the late rounds at the end of your draft. Kirk Cousins isn't going to win you your league, but he's not going to lose you your league either. You can also take a swing for the fences with a guy like Lamar Jackson who has crazy upside. And again, he could be a league winner, but then again, he could also be a big-time fantasy bust. He's very volatile for sure, but you can take a swing at him. And the draft capital you're spending in the late rounds is almost nothing. So in a 12-team league, you can wait. Now, a 16-team league, if you're in a deeper league, then yes, you don't want to wait that long. You do want to start looking at the quarterback position around 7, 8, in that range of your draft. Don't wait too long. You know, really optimally, you want to look at when about a dozen quarterbacks have come off the board, but no more than 20. Once you get past that 20 point, you're not going to like your options as much, so you want to look in that range. But what about 10-team leagues? And there's an old formula that I like to use that you can determine, you know, it's a rough estimate of how many quarterbacks are likely to be drafted in your league. It's a simple formula. Ready? You take the number of starters, and then you add to that half of the number of starters. So in a 10-team league, 10 plus 5, 15 quarterbacks is what you could expect. The logic behind this is that about half of the teams in your league will draft a backup. So 15 quarterbacks is what you could expect to be drafted in a 10-team league. That means that between 15 and 20, so 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, those guys are likely on the waiver wire for week 1. You're talking you could have Kirk Cousins on the waiver wire, Lamar Jackson, Mitchell Trubisky, Tom Brady. These are the types of quarterbacks who could go undrafted. In a 10-team league, get this, you could legitimately not draft a quarterback and be fine. You could work the waiver wire all season and be completely fine. That's how much value there is at the position. Now, your league rules may stipulate that you have to draft a quarterback. In that instance, I'm going to wait until the very end of my draft. If I have a kicker and team defense spot, I draft those in the last 2 rounds. I will draft a quarterback in the final round before that. You know, I'm not going to, take a quarterback any earlier because there just simply isn't any value in doing so. And what you're going to be able to do there is you're going to load your roster up at running back and wide receiver, and you'll have a really quality tight end as well. Now, if you're in an 8-team league, and if you're one of those people you don't like 8-team leagues, well, here's the deal. People play in 8-team leagues. It doesn't matter. Let them do what they want to do because, hey, they're playing fantasy football. We're all in this together. Fantasy football is awesome. whether it's an 8-team league, a 32-team dynasty league, whatever it is, a kicker-only league, doesn't matter. It's fantasy. It's awesome. So if you're in an 8-team league, let's do the formula really quickly, right? 8 starters plus 4 is 12. You can expect 12 quarterbacks to be drafted in your 8-team league. You don't have to draft a quarterback at all in an 8-team league. You can wait until the very end of your draft. There is legitimately so much value later on in your draft. You don't have to address the position whatsoever. Let everybody else draft quarterbacks early. Hammer the other positions, and you are going to be just fine in your 8-team leagues. Now, that was one quarterback. Let's switch gears and go over to 2 quarterback leagues and superflex leagues. And I will say that I treat a superflex league just like a 2 quarterback league. So you're, really in an optimal sense in that superflex spot, you almost always want to be starting a quarterback if you can get away with it. So we're going to treat him exactly the same. Now, in those leagues, doesn't matter if it's a crazy quarterback early league, Patrick Mahomes is going to go in the first round, and he should. I have him ranked as a top 12 guy, but you don't need to have Patrick Mahomes to win in those leagues. You're going to see other players go early. You're going to see Deshaun Watson go early. You're going to see Aaron Rodgers go early. You may see 6, 7 quarterbacks taken by the end of the second round, maybe even more than that, but be patient. Address the other positions, because remember, when those quarterbacks are going, that means value falls at running back and wide receiver. Now, I am not going to wait until the late rounds in a 2 quarterback league, though. What I'm going to do instead is round about round 4. I'm going to look to that range where about a dozen quarterbacks have come off the board. Most typically, that is about round 4. That's when I'm going to look to pounce. And I don't want upside guys. I don't want the Lamar Jacksons of the world in my 2 quarterback leagues. I want the safer guys. I want the high floor, low ceiling guys. So Phillip Rivers, Tom Brady, Kirk Cousins, guys like that. Guys who aren't going to win your week for you, but they aren't going to lose it for you either. Safer, high floor, low ceiling guys are optimal. I'm going to take one in the 4th round, and then in the 5th round, I'm going to circle back and make sure, again, if we're getting close to 20 quarterbacks off the board, I'm going to grab that second one immediately. If not, I wait to the 6th round, but no later than that. Now, the 3rd quarterback can be tricky because you do typically want to grab that 3rd quarterback, given that bye weeks, they're going to come around and you want to be starting a quarterback. Obviously, you don't want to have to worry about working the waiver wire because your waiver wire is going to be picked dry at quarterback. So the 3rd quarterback, you have to keep an eye on things. You can wait a little bit, but I wouldn't wait much longer than, say, round 8 or 9 to address that 3rd quarterback spot, because if you wait any longer, well, here's the thing. In a 10-team league, if everybody takes a backup, you're talking 30 quarterbacks are drafted, so at least you can still get a starter. It might be a volatile starter, but at least you get a starter. In a 12-team league, 36, if every team takes 3 quarterbacks, that's 36 quarterbacks. You could possibly, if you wait too long, have to draft a guy like Daniel Jones, Dwayne Haskins, Ryan Tannehill, somebody like that who isn't a starter but could be at some point during the season. That's a volatile approach. So typically I like to look in that range of about right when around 25 quarterbacks go, between there and 30. So I'm trying to get a guy like Matthew Stafford, right? Who we've seen fantasy upside out of in the past. It's more of a run-heavy offense this year than it was in previous seasons, but still a safer guy in that range. Obviously not going to compete with your starters in a week-in, week-out basis, but a little bit of a safer guy. That's your optimal approach there in 2 quarterback leagues. So don't wait too long. Safety over upside in 2 quarterback leagues. Oftentimes in 1 quarterback leagues, I go upside over safety. So different strategies depending on how your league plays out. Of course, we do have 2 quarterback rankings. We have rankings for PPR, non-PPR, half-point PPR, projections for all those formats, and customizable projections as well if you have a unique scoring format or roster settings in your league. Of course, you can get all of those over at PFF.com.
Thanks for watching the PFF YouTube channel, and if you want to subscribe, all you have to do is push the button. Don't forget everything you get. A little fantasy, push the button. A little green line for the gambling aspects of the game, push the button. College football, push the button. The YouTube channel from PFF.